The weather's about to change a lot over the next several days as we have a big cold blast that'll be impacting a large chunk of the United States early next week. In addition to that, we are also watching the tropics, where we do have one area development in the eastern Atlantic Ocean that could end up going towards the Lesser Antilles later into next week. And we're also watching the Caribbean Sea as we could see yet again another tropical system develop near the Central American Gyre, which we've seen multiple times this year, including Hurricane Helene only a couple of weeks ago. So let's break down exactly what's happening across the United States right now, and then we'll talk more about the tropics. For the time being, many areas, including the East Coast, are very dry. And one thing I do want to point out is that Hurricane Milton is done. We do not have Hurricane Milton anymore. It's not even a storm anymore. That thing weakened very quickly after passing over Florida. And overall, the tropics for the time being are relatively quiet, at least in the Gulf of Mexico. But again, that might change as we go into later this upcoming week. And then back over on the West Coast and the northern plains, we've had some active showers and some cloud cover, but aside from that, things are really quiet for the most part across the lower 48. And for the time being, the Caribbean Sea, relatively quiet. We do have some big thunderstorms right in Central America, but that's not exactly what we're going to be talking about in today's forecast. We do think that a low pressure center could develop as we go later into this upcoming week, and that could end up posing a threat of maybe becoming some sort of tropical cyclone, which we're going to talk about those possibilities here in just a moment. But before we do that, the rest of the tropics overall not looking too shabby. We do have Tropical Storm Leslie, which is going to the northeast. That is not going to be going anywhere towards the United States as it does continue to weaken. And then we do have a 40% chance of development back over just to the west of Africa. It is expected to be a very short-lived tropical depression or storm if it's able to become better organized this morning, but overall not really much of a concern for the United States. Some of the models have been indicating that this could track towards the Lesser Antilles and may become something of concern as we go later into next week, but as of right now, no major concerns expected out of this system. Now, for the time being, the National Hurricane Center does not have any area development outlined for the Caribbean Sea, at least for now, but there are lots of signs right now pointing towards that we could at least see some development as we go into the middle or end portion of this upcoming week. So let's talk about it. Let's begin with the GEFS ensemble members. This is basically a group of computer models all embedded into one graphic that give you an idea of where we could see a low pressure center track or how intense it's going to get. So let's go ahead and go into the middle portion of next week. This is around Tuesday, and notice all these red numbers down here. That is essentially a broad or weak area of low pressure that is possible to develop by as early as Tuesday morning. Again, really far to the south in the Caribbean Sea. By Wednesday, the GEFS ensemble members become a lot more organized with at least some of this development. A few of them, though, still remain at a weak tropical depression or even just a low pressure center by Wednesday afternoon and evening. By Thursday, things become a little bit more interesting because a lot of these different members do indicate that we could end up seeing a stronger tropical storm or maybe even a hurricane developing by Thursday. And notice how all of them are in the Caribbean Sea, and there is a pretty good, 50 to 60% of these that actually do bring this to hurricane intensity by Thursday. And this is, again, the Central American Gyre. And what that essentially is a broad area of low pressure that sometimes does spin up these hurricanes or tropical storms. We actually saw that a few weeks ago. Hurricane Helene was one of these systems that developed right along the American Gyre and ended up going up towards, Florida. And even Milton was kind of in the same boat, not exactly the same, but it actually went across areas like Mexico and ended up going into the Gulf of Mexico. So this is an area that we've seen development in this year, and if this does develop, it would be obviously in the same sort of category of where it might be heading. As we go into Wednesday, Thursday, and eventually into Friday, a lot of these members are going all for the most part towards the Yucatan Peninsula or into some part of Mexico, and there's only one right now that's an outlier that brings us towards Florida as we go into Friday or to Saturday. Now, I do want to point out that nothing's developed yet, so forecasting the location or intensity of whatever could develop here 7+ days out is almost impossible. All we're talking about here is the possibility of something developing, and I want to give you at least an early heads up that we are not done with hurricane season quite yet, because this system, again, could develop as we go into next week. This is by Saturday into Sunday. A lot of the members crash this into the Yucatan Peninsula, and then as we go into October 21st, 22nd, a lot of them actually go into the Gulf of Mexico, and those could actually go towards the United States. Now, if we go 6 hours ago to the previous GEFS ensemble member run, you'll notice that there is a much larger spread of where this system is, and actually a lot of them bring it towards like Florida and also back over anywhere along the Gulf Coast. Now, again, there's really no science in forecasting something that hasn't really developed yet, but this is something to watch for. The GEFS ensembles have been honestly extremely accurate this season when it comes to predicting systems in the Central Central American gyre. So there is a possibility here that this could develop. We're going to keep a very close eye on it. One reason why we can't really nail down if this is actually going to happen yet is because one of the other ensemble groups, which is the European EPS ensemble members, don't really show much of anything. They have a couple of maybe tropical depressions or low-end tropical storms forming by Friday, but that's only 2 members out of a couple of dozen that this particular ensemble group has. So again, that's a bit more questionable, at least at this point, in terms of if this will actually develop. Now, for reference, this is what the GFS model currently shows in terms of if there will be development, and notice how it does develop a tropical storm sometime around Wednesday or Thursday, which again is only about 5 or 6 days out. There's obviously a lot of time where things could change here, so again, this is not an exact, science forecast here. This may or may not develop. It's definitely not a high chance, I'd say, right now, but it is something we need to monitor, because a lot of the ensemble members, again, are showing that this will end up developing into something. And then notice as we go to Friday, Saturday to Sunday, it actually becomes a relatively intense hurricane. The GFS model has been extremely consistent on this developing, and this is the reason why I'm talking about it today, is because there's a lot of consistency, at least from the GFS model and also the GEFS ensemble members, to the point where I do think this needs to be talked about. Now, this could crash into areas like Mexico or the Yucatan Peninsula, or it could end up going into the Gulf of Mexico and perhaps impacting the United States. Again, we don't really know what's going to happen here. We don't know if this is exactly going to develop, so make sure you're subscribed to the channel. We're going to keep you posted with the latest if this does develop. But again, the GFS model has been very accurate so far this year, even calling some of these hurricanes well ahead of time, so this is definitely something to watch for. Now, before we go further into the video, I do want to mention that we have a huge announcement. We are officially releasing 500,000 subscriber merch on shopmaxvelocity.net. It is the top link in the description below. The reason why this is a big deal is because we've never done this before, and this might be one of the only times we ever do this, where we are signing hats. We are signing merch. I'm going to be signing it myself. You can pick it up at shopmaxvelocity.net. It is just the hat that is going to have this, and we are expecting that this will sell out sometime today or tomorrow, and it could be sold out by the time you watch this video, so make sure to go check it out. Shopmaxvelocity.net, top link in the description. We also have a t-shirt, beanie hat, mug, and as well as a sticker if you want to go check those out. But I truly want to thank all of you for 500,000 subscribers. It has been a crazy run here on YouTube. I would have never thought we would even get past 10,000 subscribers, so the fact we're hitting 500,000 is absolutely insane. So I really do appreciate all of you that are a part of this channel, and even if you just watch videos and you are not subscribed, I still do appreciate you guys a lot. Now, I do want to mention that we do have that other tropical system back over in the eastern Atlantic Ocean. A lot of the ensemble members are bringing this towards the Lesser Antilles, but it's expected to remain a relatively weak system over the next several days, as it's just not in a very favorable environment. But the Lesser Antilles could be impacted later in this week. The really thing that I want to watch for here over the next few days is if this thing can organize again as it moves towards the Lesser Antilles, as there are a few models that do show that this could intensify again towards a tropical storm or maybe even a hurricane by around day 5 or 7, which would be sometime in the middle half of next week. So I'll have to watch this closely for those in the Lesser Antilles, but as of right now, no major concerns. For the rest of the United States, the weather is going to be interesting over the next few days, mainly for the eastern tier of the country, as we are going to have a large trough develop that is going to usher in tons of colder air from Canada into areas like the East Coast, the Ohio Valley, the Midwest, and even down into the Southeast, where there will be much colder weather. But by the time we go into the later half of the week, we are going to have a ridge build right back in across the eastern tier, which is going to warm things right back up, especially across the Great Plains. But basically, the entire eastern half of the United States is going to feel that increase of temperatures yet again. And then once we go into next weekend, we actually could get a low pressure system that brings our first real threat for severe weather this October, maybe back over in some of the central or southern plains. So the temperatures are going to drop substantially as we go into Monday into Tuesday across the Ohio Valley, Midwest, and Northeast. Eventually, by Tuesday into Wednesday, that cold air ushers into areas like Florida, Georgia, South Carolina, and North Carolina. And then by the time we go into Thursday into Friday, that cold air will kind of simmer down into the southeast United States, but warm air will build right back up for those in the Great Plains, the Northeast, Ohio Valley, and Midwest. And then by the time we go into Saturday, Sunday, into Monday, things become a bit more uncertain by then. Now, in terms of the actual temperatures, they are going to cool down a ton, especially across the Northeast. Look at this, by Wednesday morning, many areas dropping below freezing, including Wisconsin, Iowa, and even maybe northern Illinois, and then up and down from Maine back into North Carolina below freezing temperatures are expected, and also below normal temperatures are expected in those areas. Even high temperatures for Wednesday do not look impressive if you're in the Northeast, only in the 40s for many areas. Now, in terms of the future radar, things are going to stay active in the Northeast through the weekend and into early next week. Might even get some of our first snow of the season back over in the higher elevations of New Hampshire, Vermont, Maine, and New York. Once we go into Wednesday, Thursday, into Friday, that high pressure will build into the eastern tier of the United States. And then again, maybe a severe weather event setting up somewhere in the central or southern plains by Saturday, but that at this point still remains uncertain. And before the video ends, I just want to remind you that our 500,000 subscriber merch is out. Again, the hat is expected to sell out very quickly, so if you want to pick one of these up, it is the top link in the description below or at shopmaxvelocity.net. The other merch is expected to be out all the way until October 31st. The t-shirt may sell out though at some point here soon, so just make sure if you want to get that, pick it up at shopmaxvelocity.net. But again, everything that you see here, if it does not sell out, it will be available until about October 31st. So you have the entire month. Again, the hat though, I do expect to sell out today. We are signing these, and again, we only have a limited supply, so make sure to go check that out. Thank you guys so much for watching. Make sure to hit the like button down below and subscribe if you've not already.